Are we live? Sorry, Bertie, I can't. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to a very warm Abingdon for tonight's meeting of Oxfordshire Council's Cabinet. My name is David Lorraine, leader of the council, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. Becky, would you like to do a roll call?
Yes, of course. So in alphabetical order, if members can please confirm if they're present in the meeting room or present online. So I'll start with Councillor Peter Paul Barker.
Present online.
Thank you. And we have received apologies from Councillor Philippa Riggers. So Councillor Georgina Heritage.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Sam James Laurie.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Rawlings.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor David Lorraine.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Anne-Marie Simpson.
Present online.
Thank you. And Councillor Tony Morgan.
Present online.
Thank you.
As members will be aware, the date for this meeting changed, which is why we're a little bit thin on the ground because it now clashed with several people being away. But we're grateful to some for breaking into their holidays and joining us online. The chair's announcements. I don't think there's anyone here who hasn't been in this office many times before, so you will already know the prior instructions. Item 3, the minutes of the last meeting. Are people happy for me to sign those as a correct record? Yes. If I propose, I'm saying everybody agree with that. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any items that they would like to declare? Jen shaking of head. Obviously, as normal, if something occurs to you halfway through an item that you suddenly find that you have shares in company we're discussing, then voice it at that point. The next item is public participation. I understand we now have 2 speakers who've registered. The first I've got on my list is Councillor Sam Casey-Reri. Are you online, Sam?
I am. Can you see me?
Yep, we can see you now. Remind me how long?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. When you're ready.
Great, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. You've got the recommendations from the scrutiny meeting in relation to item 8 on the agenda, which is the annual delivery plan, and I don't wish to repeat these. I think they're clear enough. But what I did want to add was a bit of context around them and set them within the development of the council plan and the coming local government reorganisation. As you know, of course, that the council agreed that this council plan will be high level. It will be a less detailed plan than the last one. So this could allow flexibility over the time of the plan, but also in order to ensure that the reporting demands will be less onerous but clearer. And this was coupled with a commitment that the annual action plans that will come under that would be much more detailed with and targeted, so that performance dashboard that's being developed will be more easily understood in relation to where the council plan was against these targets and actions. I don't think this has been demonstrated with this action plan clearly enough. As you know, scrutiny asked for prioritisation, a trajectory and for some annual targets for the actions. Again, in relation very much to the original aims of the annual plans, but also in relation to local government reorganisation. This will require, as we know, agility in the council and shifts. But also, I think, in the interests of the council goal of transparency, We want to be able to allow residents and other councillors to see what has changed, shifted, or stopped over time, and be able to hold you to account on this. It's really hard to scrutinise something if you're not sure what you're scrutinising exactly. I'll just give an example. I gave in scrutiny actually, which was on the Didcot Broadway development. It's not clear where you see this development will be in 12 months' time. It just says you will carry on with that. I also think, I'm just going to go rapidly through this because I don't have very long, that there is a bit of confusion on the actions and the action plan in relation to what is business as usual, what are new actions. For example, there's something on live streaming meetings. That's something that's carrying on now already. The thing about parish forums seems to have dropped off, for example. Will we carry on having parish forums? What's the plan for that? In financial strategic priority, one of them was to exercise responsible and ethical investment, but there don't seem to be any actions against that aim at all. So I just think that it will benefit from the cabinet member being clearer with the plan, where it stands on that prioritisation and that vision, and then what you want to achieve in this specific year. That's all I have to say.
And very well timed. I think, as those relate to a particular item on the agenda, I think the cabinet member will take those into account when he presents it. But thanks for taking the time to come and present in person. I think most of us, or some of us certainly, were at the screening meeting. It was a really useful meeting in terms of making that piece of work better. So thank you for that. Moving on, our next public speaker is Mr. John Salmons. Are you there, Mr. Salmons?
Yes, I'm online. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. You know the form by now. We have 3 minutes.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, good evening, councillors. So I have a question for the Leader of the Council regarding agenda item 11, the proposed changes to the capital programme, and specifically those relating to the Didcot Gateway office scheme. It'll come as no surprise to members that I agree with the comments in the report that the office scheme is no longer justified, that it would be inappropriate to continue with the scheme, and that the council risks reputational damage by continuing with the scheme in light of local government reorganisation. But of course, this has been the case for a long time now. The leader may recall I joined a meeting of this cabinet 6 months ago and urged him then to put a stop to this scheme. I dread to think how much officer time and money has been wasted since then, submitting 3 amendments to the planning application and ramming it through a planning committee ever so conveniently the day before this report was published. So whilst I welcome the proposal to cease spending on the scheme, this particular proposal doesn't go far enough, because within the report it's proposed to spend a further £500,000 continuing work streams relating to this scheme, none of which appear to deliver any benefit to the council or local residents. Completing legal agreements, including a section 106 for a scheme the council no longer intends to deliver, is a completely pointless waste of legal costs and officer time. Formalising the planning consent also appears to be a completely pointless endeavour. The odds of anyone other than this council ever delivering the scheme for which permission was sought are, I would suggest, extremely slim. The power supply and substation will be of no benefit to this council. It will sit unused for years until a future owner of the site decides it's the wrong specification or in the wrong location and has to redo the work. Building the substation as proposed comes at the expense of the neighbouring nursery school, who have expressed serious concerns about that element of the scheme, a pointless and harmful endeavour. This is the definition of throwing good money after bad. The best time to demonstrate decisive leadership and stop all work on this scheme was 6 months ago. The second best time is now. And with that, my question is, how can the Leader of the Council possibly justify wasting a further £575,000 and goodness knows how much officer time continuing to flog this dead horse?
you. That relates to a particular item on the agenda, and I'll pick quite a few of those during the discussion. But I would like to answer some of the questions I was writing down as you were saying. First of all, ramming through planning, I think is an emotive phrase and not apt. There was a planning timetable which was followed. There are on a complex site often many things to consider that before things come to planning. It wasn't conveniently the day before this report was published. This report was published conveniently the day after planning permission was granted. There was another report that was drafted in case planning permission wasn't granted, and would have gone in a different direction with a different recommendation, presumably. In terms of the money spent, there are two visions of DCOT. One is that DCOT is a dormitory town where people sleep. It's characterised by housing estates and car parks, and as such, when you come out of DCOT Parkway Station, seeing a car park characterises that town. This development was planned for a very different sort of DCOT, a DCOT which is a better place, where people don't just say, that's too good for DCOT. It's a site that brings commercial value to the town, somewhere where people can work as well as living here and playing here. It was a complex site that had got to a certain stage when local government reorganisation was announced. We could have thrown all that away, but we were advised that it would get to there would be a certain value attached to the site if we took it through with planning permission. Planning permission adds to the value of the site. Particularly, you mentioned the power supply. We live in the 21st century. That site is going to need electricity, whatever is developed there. And this was described as future-proofing of that site, whether it's the office, whether it's a council office that's built there by our successor organisation, or whether it's a commercial building built by either our successor council or by a private developer, or whether it's a housing development taken on by presumably Homes England, who are developing the rest of the site. All of that adds value to the site, and so I don't apologise at all for taking it to a logical conclusion where we could then pause and hand it over to whatever our successor organisation is. In terms of the objections raised by the nursery, they raised particular environmental concerns, which were valid things for a tenant next door to raise, but those were answered in the planning meeting by the planning officer, quoting from an environmental officer, who said, I think if I'm recollecting correctly, that there is no noticeable effect more than a metre beyond the substation. This substation is the same as those that are put in housing developments all over the country, and it's 4 metres away from the boundary. So unless children were going to jump over the fence and climb onto the substation, it didn't seem to pose a risk. That was all explained in the planning committee meeting, and whilst it was valid for the nursery to raise it then, I think re-raising it after that's been addressed is basically the epitome of a tinfoil hat conspiracy. I used to get lots of correspondence about 4G masts and other sort of electrical interference. And these were all addressed at that meeting. So I'll stop there. In terms of the specific points that you raised, Mr. Lemon, and speaking more generally about the site, we'll do that when we get to that item. Our monitoring officer has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair Leader. Just to say, you referred to emotive language, and I regularly speak to persons using emotive language in a way which I'm uncomfortable with. I think we need to be very careful when we're talking about the topics that you're talking about at the end of your discussion there, and I'd ask to avoid similarly emotive language for that, please. Thank
you for that reminder. Yes, I'm coming off the back of lots of social media misrepresentations on this. If we should move on. Item 7 is recommendations and updates from communities. We've already heard from those. I don't think there were any other.
Unless Councillor Rawlings would like to add anything.
I think we'll address that.
Cover it in the item.
Yeah. So moving on to item 8, the annual delivery plan for 25-26. Councillor Rawlings, would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as we know, our corporate plan has morphed into the way ahead, our council plan, and it sets out our aims and makes sure the delivery plan makes sure that we keep to our aims, that they're funded, that we live within agreed financing budgets, and we make sure that they are resourced with priority deliverables. We have a focused plan, rigorous prioritisation of that plan, looking at the bang for the buck that we can achieve and be clear what success looks like. We seek to measure progress and delivery as far as possible, and the new reporting dashboard is a good move and addresses and speaks to that aim. The whole thing is supported with digital marketing in real time on our website with our council plan there. Obviously, we relate back to the 5 themes that we have: climate and nature, transparency and engagement, driving healthy, inclusive communities, homes and infrastructure, and financial stability and transformation. There is some context. There is LGR. There is some risk that comes out of that with staff uncertainty and other uncertainties. There is limited amount of officer time, and our horizon is somewhat affected by LGR, but equally LGR is at least 2 years away, so very much let's do what we can. I think the points that were made by scrutiny were, I thought, pretty reasonable. They wanted to consider the inclusion of more specific targets to measure progress against each year. So in some cases it says we aim to get to X in 4 years, and they would like to see some annual milestones to see where we should be at points along the trajectory. And that seems reasonable, and they echo that by talking about what the expected trajectory is, so that everybody can see how much are we asking for when. And some of these things you won't get a quarter of the way in year 1 of 4. But if you don't hit your goals in year 1, then obviously there's a bigger risk that you won't hit them in year 4 by a bigger amount. I think it was also, the point was made that some of the activities are more important than others, and perhaps there should be a particular spotlighting of super priorities, that if we were to drop the ball on those, that it would be very much more serious than on others. And I thought that was a reasonable observation for scrutiny to make. That's what proper scrutiny is, as far as I'm concerned. And in some of the cases, they thought that there should be a bit more clarity as to exactly what success would look like. And again, I don't criticise what's being done, because I think we were looking to make a step change, and I think officers have worked to achieve, or at least to move towards that. But I think equally it's accepted that there are some extra bits that can be done, and Tim can't attend tonight as the senior officer responsible, but he seems to have accepted on the back of the scrutiny meeting that these were reasonable points to make, and that officers should spend a bit of time seeing if we can't ameliorate this and just produce an even better document. And I would endorse that.
Thank you. The proposal is seek cabinet approval for this similar proposal.
I would propose that we approve it, but that we look forward to improving it even more.
Does anyone else want to second? So right. Let's see, formal seconding. Yeah, anyone else wanting to ask questions first? In which case, move on to comments. Does anyone want to make any comments about this? Georgina first.
Sorry, no, it was just that I've found this to be quite succinct, and it's quite clear to me that it subscribes to our themes and priorities. I think the new dashboard simplified for residents and those looking to look at our the framework. I feel it's understandable. There is the opportunity to delve and add detail, and I'm sure that Councillor Rawlins and the officers will take that on and develop it further. But yeah, I think really, as I said, my overall impression, if you like, is that this is a succinct piece of work, that it was an effective framework.
Yeah, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, David. Just in terms of the very, very sensible points made by Councillor Casey Ruhai, a question for Councillor Rawlings about when you might actually come back with a slightly updated and something that actually has a few dates on. When do you think it would be reasonable to say, right, we've actually had a look now, and actually we've updated a little bit with a bit more of the information? How long do you think that might be to do?
I'm speaking off the cuff, but I would hope we would get it done within a month.
Thank you.
I was going to suggest a quarter, but it's good to have.
I will update as we engage with officers. Yeah.
My own comment is this is far better than the ones that we've had before. It will be better next time with continuous improvement. But I think it does the job. I share Councillor Morgan and Scrutiny's view that I'd like to see some deadlines on things. And I think we had the same conversation with regards to the Garden Town document, and that one could go Scrutiny. Saying what we're doing is one thing, but saying what we're going to do them by it's also it's a good discipline. Nothing else.
Yeah, I think yeah, as you said, David, the same point was made at joint scrutiny around the Garden Town, entirely reasonable, and we ought to be doing that across the council where we can.
So that all said, Councillor Rawlins, do you want to?
Can I come in? I did have my hand up when Tony didn't last time.
Tiny, very tiny, very tiny.
No, I just want to thank officers for doing this, and I do think it's an improvement. I think it's looking good, and taking on board Scrutiny's comments, you're going to go and see how you know those can be incorporated as well. I just put a note of caution. We are in a rapidly changing environment, particularly because of LGR and things moving around. And what I don't want us to lose is the ability to adapt, be nimble and quick within our action plan. If you start trying to pin things down in detail, perhaps you might take that away from officers, and that wouldn't benefit us and the outcomes we're seeking to achieve through the action plan. So just a note of caution there to also consider, please.
Thank you. That's all right. Would you like to sum up before we?
Yeah, I think some good points have been made, and we'll try and work towards those. But I think this is the right step forward, so I would recommend that we proceed down this path.
Can I see those in favour? Everyone in the room, thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is item 9, Cornerstone Annual Christmas Pantomime. I am going to operate a zero tolerance policy on catchphrases relating to pantos. We've had plenty of time to get those apparatus.
Oh no, we haven't.
Councillor Heritage, would you like to introduce us?
Yes, thank you. So this report, we're looking for approval to award a 3-year contract with an option to extend for 2 further 12-month periods to a company called Polka Dot Pantomimes Limited. This is for the delivery of an annual Christmas pantomime at Cornerstone, commencing December 2025. The recommendation follows a very robust tender process, and it's based on the proven success and the significant future potential of the pantomime model at the venue. So in December 2024, Cornerstone Arts Centre successfully presented its inaugural Christmas pantomime, Cinderella. The production was met with overwhelming positive audience feedback, and it demonstrated exceptionally high quality. And most importantly, Cinderella proved to be a commercially viable model, highlighting substantial potential for development in terms of financial return and audience reach for Cornerstone Arts Centre. So recognising the success and potential, the council initiated a tender process in May 2025 to secure a theatre production company that would be capable of delivering a high-quality pantomime over a multi-year contract term. With a demonstrated financial viability and the council's commitment to a long-term partnership, we were in a strong position to negotiate a more financially advantageous arrangement. The tender stipulated a crucial shift in the financial model, so that the council would only accept a split percentage income deal. This arrangement ensures that the council receives a guaranteed share of ticket income, in addition to the existing venue levy income, while the contracting producer bears all production costs and financial risk. This approach significantly de-risks the venture for the council. The tender was widely advertised in May 2025, both through the council procurement portal and the leading industry publication, The Stage. This generated considerable interest, with 11 national companies visiting the centre. Bidders were rigorously scored on two key criteria: quality 50% and price 50%. The quality assessment involved a comprehensive review of previous performance recordings, venue references, press reviews and marketing assets, alongside an evaluation of operational planning, health and safety records and social value. Following this detailed evaluation, Polka Dot Pantomimes Limited emerged as the highest scoring bidder, achieving a very impressive 48% out of the maximum 50% for quality. The next two bidders scored 40% and 33% respectively. Polka Dot Pantomimes, a Cambridgeshire-based company, boasts 15 years of experience in producing pantomimes, with a stated aim of delivering truly spectacular performances. Their extensive track record includes successfully staging 8 pantomimes across the country during the 24-25 season, spanning small, mid and large-scale venues with capacities ranging from 200 to over 1,000 in locations such as Bristol, Hastings, Spalding, Bolton and Grantham. This proposed contract offers significant financial advantages and no upfront costs or financial risks for the council, as the contracting company bears all total production costs. Other associated expenditure, such as publicity and staffing, is already budgeted within existing allocations. So based on the financial terms proposed by Polka Dot, the estimated gross income for the 2025 pantomime is projected to be, based on 2024 figures, 77,784 gross ticket sales, that the council would retain 29%, equating to an estimate 22,557 gross income. And based on maximum capacity, £99,770 gross ticket sales, the council retains 29%, and that would equate to an estimated £28,933 in gross income. And these figures are gross income before deductions. Furthermore, the council's percentage of income retained is set to increase to 30% in year 2 and 31% in year 3, reflecting a progressive financial benefit. Future income estimates are anticipated to be higher due to potential increases in performances, including schools' performances, and projected audience attendance growth. I'm reassured by officers that this is an excellent deal, as good a deal as we could have expected. Beyond ticket sales, the council will receive 100% of all pantomime merchandise income, with projections indicating sales in excess of £4,500, based on a 10% increase from last year. Additionally, enhanced bar and cafe sales are anticipated during the Christmas period due to increased audience numbers and an improved bar offer, advanced booking options, better point of sale systems and marketing efforts to encourage early arrivals. But very importantly, the pantomime's production, rehearsal and performance schedule avoids any detrimental impact on other income streams, such as classes, workshops or room hires, as it takes place after Christmas classes conclude and during a typically quiet period for hires. So, recommendation, the proposed pantomime contract represents a vital strategic step in developing Cornerstone Arts Centre's audience, expanding its reach and strengthening its financial outlook. For all the reasons outlined above, it is strongly recommended that Cabinet will award a 3-year contract with an option to extend for 2 12-month periods to Polka Dot Pantomimes Limited to deliver an annual Christmas pantomime at Cornerstone from this December 2025, and B, delegates authority to the head of communities to finalise the terms and enter a contract with Polka Dot Pantomimes Limited. Thank you.
Do we have a second? Sorry. First of all, any questions to the proposer, rising from the paper or from the presentation? In which case, seconder, would you like to speak?
Yes. Pantomimes are a fantastic thing. There is nobody in this room that hasn't been to one. In fact, there's probably nobody across the district that hasn't been to one at least once in their life. I fully support this, and the company that has been chosen, I think, will do an absolutely fantastic job for it. Any
further comments? I just have one point. It does seem like a no-brainer. This is it's something you've tested, so it's fairly low risk going forward. But your structure of it is one of the impressive things that came out of the analysis of last year is the proportion of people who have never been to Cornerstone before, and hopefully we're following that up and getting them to go on to other things, and certainly to the next winter. So yes, I'm happy to support it. There are no other hands. Councillor Heritage, do you want to sum up anything?
Yeah, sure. I attended the 2024 pantomime, which was a pilot really for the longer term commitment, and it was such a huge success in its own right, putting Cornerstone on the map, and it was a quality production with extremely high interest and attendance. And as Councillor Ruane has pointed out, it brought new customers to Cornerstone, which I think is extremely valuable. And important for the Arts Centre. I'm supportive of the split percentage income deal. I feel confident that the security of the same professional company running the production each year will bring great financial benefit. As the report states, ticket sales can begin as soon as the last production ends, which is what other theatres do. And while the happy experience is still fresh in families' minds, in fact, the security of this contract will bring so many opportunities for Cornerstone, from schools engagement, publicity for the Arts Centre, bringing new customers to us, longer show running times to increase profitability, greater ancillary sales and other possible revenue streams. And the team were absolutely right to test the idea in the way they did in 2024. And I think the solid results demonstrate that they were absolutely right to look into a longer term commitment. I'm very confident in the robust process that they undertook, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Polka Dot Productions production.
Yeah, asked to consider this report and adopt the proposals. Can see those in favour? That's everyone in the room. We move on to item 10, which is the proposed changes to the joint housing allocations policy. Councillor Philippa Rivers would normally introduce this, but is in foreign parts, so has asked me to introduce it. And should someone ask a question which stumps me, as Goldie is on online, prop me up. So if I introduce the report sets out proposed changes to the joint housing allocations policy and seeks cabinet approval for those updated policy. This is a policy that we have a statutory duty to publish, and it's a policy for determining priorities for the allocation of social housing. The current housing allocations policy was first adopted in February 2019 and requires updating to reflect current legislation and local housing priorities. There are four main changes, which are increasing the income and savings threshold for inclusion on the housing register from 60,000 to 80,000, and that is reflecting the change in incomes over the period of time since it was last published. Increasing the rent arrears threshold for disqualification from housing register from £500 to £1,000, and again that is reflecting the increase in costs over that period. Thirdly, amending the unacceptable behaviour exclusion criteria and disqualification period, and finally increasing the priority banding for homeless households in temporary accommodation. That is both for the benefit of the person who's in temporary accommodation, but also a cost benefit on that. Temporary accommodation is expensive, and assuming we can move people in permanent accommodation. So not only big for the persons within permanent accommodation, but also for the else. The proposed changes were considered by officers, members, and stakeholders, and at public consultation. And I think quite a few of the people around the table would have attended an event organised by Phil and his team to look at these proposals. 908 responses were received to the public consultation, with a clear majority in agreement with each of the proposed changes. By adopting the proposed amendments, the Council will continue to have a robust, fair and legally compliant housing allocations policy. So, subject to Cabinet's approval, the aim is to implement the updated policy by the 1st of November 2025. Do we have any questions, either from the paper or from what I just said as a summary? In which case I'm formally. Oh, sorry, Anne-Marie.
Sorry, I was just wondering. I did attend the workshops, which were great, I thought, and I think that the public engagement was obviously very successful too, with the numbers that responded, and it's very good to see a clear majority in favour of each of the changes. I've just got one question, which is typically what is the rent arrears people have? That's probably a question for officers, maybe.
To give, if I give Phil a little bit of time to think, I know the increase was because the £500, basically if you're 1 month in arrears with your rent, that would take you way past the £500 typically, and probably in this area. So Phil, would you like to give us a thinking behind the increase to £1,000?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to give a sort of a typical average because obviously it varies on a sort of case by case basis. But we wanted to reflect that, you know, rental costs and the cost of living issues have combined to make it more and more difficult to afford the rent. A point that I would make is that if we can establish a person isn't responsible for any arrears, we allow them to join the register anyway. So this is for people that have accumulated arrears. The proposal also includes that they need to have a repayment plan in place in order to join the register. So I haven't got an exact figure for average arrears, but this will make it easier for people to join the register who have got arrears. as long as they're prepared to address those that they're responsible for.
Thank you.
So the primary consideration when you're looking at it is not the absolute amount, but how it's being dealt with. That was nodding for it.
Yeah, because what we don't want to do is obviously trap people in a position where they've got arrears. We effectively say we punish them and don't let them join the register. So the likely outcome is that those arrears in a higher rented accommodation may accumulate, and then it becomes more and more difficult. So this is a lot better opportunity to allow people to demonstrate willing, get them on the register, and help them into a better housing outcome.
Any further questions? In which case, if I'm proposing, can I ask for a seconder?
Would you like me to read out?
Yes, I noticed we've just had a reply from the head of service. Becky, would you like to read it out?
Yes, of course. So Paul Fielding has said 1 month's average rent in a 3-bedroom private rental property is over £1,000 in the district. So only would need 1 month's of arrears to build up arrears of over £1,000.
Which makes the case for it being more than 1,000. But I think given that Phil's description of how that number is used, I think that's the basis of it. Any further questions, Councillor Simpson?
No, I haven't got a question. I was just going to say I'm comfortable with the response that I've received and understand. I think you're reminded probably what was also said at the workshop, and also that it is 100% increase from what it was. So it is a change. And it obviously did receive a lot of support through the public engagement too.
Right, a seconder. Councillor Heritage, would you like to speak?
Yes, I'll just speak to say that I know that it's a statutory requirement to review this, but it's the changes are right and proper in light of inflation and the higher living costs that people are challenged with currently. I'm really pleased to see that those in temporary accommodation are given higher priority status for housing, and I just feel this is a very responsible review that allows dignity in housing. I read the public consultation with interest. I'm pleased to see that responses were in line with our direction, and I'm very pleased to support the second.
Yeah. Any other debate? Councillor Barker.
Yes, I just wanted to speak in favour of the policy change to increase the priority banding for homeless households in temporary accommodation. These are families and individuals who are in particularly difficult circumstances, and being in hotels, bed and breakfasts, or even worse, moving from one to another regularly is a really difficult situation to be in. And so, yeah, moving them into band 2, and obviously assuming that we're able to find a solution for them, I think that's a very important policy change.
Thank you. Any other contributions? In which case, can I see those in favour of this updating of policy? Thanks, everyone in the room. Thank you. And if we can move on now to item 11, which is a supplementary paper. To that, and quite a wide ranging one. It gathers together several recommendations, which will be a test for chairing the discussion, but we'll see how it goes. Councillor Barker, would you like to introduce the paper?
Yes, thank you. Obviously, I can't propose the paper as I'm online, but yeah, I'd be happy to introduce it.
I'll formally propose it to them.
Thank you. So this item brings together a number of significant changes to our revenue budget for this year, 25-26, and for the capital programme, which runs from 25-26 to 29-30, the latest one. And so we're recommending for council to approve those First of all, in terms of the revenue budget, and when it comes to the revenue grant scheme, we make award of grants for a 2-year period with an annual budget of 334,000, so double that for the 2 years. And when the community grants panel met relatively recently, it was heavily oversubscribed by 521,000. In terms of applications deemed worthy of funding, actually. So of course applicants might have been even more. But yeah, 521,000 short in terms of what the grants panel would have liked to be able to award. Now, as a result of underspends against last year's revenue budget, and you know, the good financial position of the council, it is possible for us to fund that 521,000. And clearly that has to be a full council decision if Cabinet recommends that tonight. And I'll leave it to others to talk about specific, you know, applications and organisations that would benefit from that, perhaps because I wasn't on that panel myself. But in terms of overall our finances, we can afford to do that. And, you know, the panel has vetted these applications and deemed them worthy of funding. So I think that makes sense to do so. Moving on to the capital programme, there are 2 decisions that we would be recommending council to agree to. First of all, with regard to the Gateway site, was already mentioned earlier, of course, planning permission has been granted after you know, several years of work and attention for that important site, the effectively Gateway to Tidcot opposite the station. However, as a result of LGR, local government reorganisation, for all property matters, it makes sense to hand our property over to whoever the successor council may be in good order, in the best possible state. And as such, it's appropriate to pause the council office project at this time, at the point where planning permission has been achieved. And so to cease work and sort of package that project up as best we can, handing things over in good order for the new council to decide whether to go ahead with the scheme as it stands or not. I think although it's not directly mentioned here, obviously the point about the power supply was mentioned earlier as well, and that's also an important property consideration. For those who may not be aware, any development in Tidcot has a significant constraint at the moment in that power supply is hard to obtain when it's, you know, when it's not sufficient and needs to be installed or expanded. And so getting that in place now makes a significant difference to the value and the availability of this site for whatever the future council decides to do. And therefore it's a sensible use of public money to invest in that way. And we're a council that from the start has been investing in our local communities. And this is a good example of that. The final point to consider tonight is the direct delivery of housing. To fund Tidcot Gateway, the council was anticipating using £10 million of the council's long-term hold of 50 million. So that 10 million becomes available, and our budget setting report in February did include a paragraph which mentioned this, which said that should officers be able to identify opportunities to expand our directly owned housing stock that are in line with our capital strategy, support our ongoing financial stability and support service delivery, officers will seek to bring forward those proposals for due consideration up to a total cumulative value of a further 10 million. So Cabinet recommends to Council that the 10 million anticipated to be invested in Tidcot Gateway from that long-term hold is instead used to fund further purchases of housing in line with that statement of intent. Now that funding would be targeted at the anticipated purchase of approximately 30 units of suitable housing depending on price. Obviously, if you use as temporary accommodation, similar to the point we just heard about on the homelessness policy, housing policy, or general need housing based on an analysis of demand for both temporary accommodation and the council's housing register. Housing relocated based on professional advice of housing property officers in South Oxfordshire to ensure it's suitable to meet the wider needs of individuals, whether it's social housing, including key considerations such as transport connectivity and access to local services. And to facilitate that investment, a one-off supplementary estimate to revenue budgets 25, 26, 26, 27 of 650,000 spread across the 2 years is recommended to fund any revenue costs associated with that housing stock investment. And that also would be funded from the 24-25, so last year's revenue budget underspend.
Okay. Thanks for that. As the proposer, I'd like to do some clarifications as well on some things in the paper, because we've had queries about it from press and such. First of all, Councillor Barker said pause the project. It's not a pause project, it's ending the project as far as this council is concerned. It might be that another council picks it up, but as far as we're concerned, we're not pausing this thing. Because you couldn't deliver it in the time around. The other clarification I got, paragraph 15 of paper gives a total spend of 2.2 million. When I asked for a breakdown of this and officers investigated, we found that this included £300,000, which relates to the Promarsh side rather than to the Gateway side. So the correct figure there should be 1.9 million rather than 2.2. Mr. Hewings will stop me if I get this wrong. And we also had a query from the BBC as to whether the 575 was in addition to the advised now 1.9. It is actually included in it. So the 1.9 is total. The 575 is still paid, includes things, essentially the biggest chunk of it is the electricity substation. It also includes the salary of the project manager, and it also includes a contingency. So just matters of clarification with regards the finances. Can't help with the accountant sometimes. So that's proposed. I formally proposed it. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Rawlings, would you like to speak now?
Reserve it.
Does anyone else want to speak? Tony, Councillor Walton.
Yeah, just to build on Councillor Barker's point about the community grants panel, that's a panel that I chaired in the last year, and I think the whole panel across the council were unanimous in their view that we would want to be able to spend more, and we want to be able to invest in those organisations which benefit our community far more than we were actually able to with the money available. So clearly there was a clear demand from that committee to be able to do that, and I think all members of that, whether I was in the cabinet now or not, would be, I'd be expressing huge gratitude for that we're able to fund those bodies, and just to add, even those organisations which fell below the line, it was still disappointing that we weren't able to give them anything at all. So all of them who came, and even those who fell below the line, were doing fantastic work across the community. So the fact we're able to do this is great. Clearly, the second point I wanted to add was on the Didcot Gateway site. Clearly we have to maximise the value to that, and that's what I think we are doing. And as for the idea that there is some kind of magic wand which is going to magically create a different facility that can be built on that site is frankly wishful thinking. there is a limit to what can be done on the site with regard to everything that's going on around it. So clearly what we're doing is maximising the value for whatever future unitary authority may wish to do with it. So I think we are absolutely doing the right thing for our residents and their council tax. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Heritage.
I would just like to really echo Councillor Morgan's words regarding the grants programmes. I'm really, it sits within my portfolio. I'm really proud of the grants programmes we offer at SODC, and I know what a good job the grants panel does. And I want to thank officers for responding so effectively to the request that funds could be moved to where it's needed most right now. So I'm really echoing Councillor Morgan's words, and I'd like to thank officers for their work with that. And I just also just wanted to refer to Councillor Barker's point that adding capital to our plan to purchase housing stock. I mean, if there's any legacy that I could wish for following local government reorganisation, it's more council houses. So they were just a couple of points I wanted to make. Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on that positive point about more affordable housing as well. I mean, it's been something that our administration has wanted to do for right from what I remember, right from the beginning, looking at affordability and affordable housing and increasing us and actually coming back and having our own stock. So I just think that's really positive news, and that is despite, if you like, the fact that we've got ourselves in a situation now where we are having to consider local government reorganisation, and that will only increase in terms of our consideration going forward. So I would actually like to thank officers to actually picking up on this steer that we gave them, and helping us to deliver, or delivering it for us. So well done, all those involved in this.
Anyone who wants to? In which case I'll sum up as the proposer. Going through. Oh, sorry, Lee.
I was just going to come back and do my bit.
You were far too subtle. You have to wave.
Yeah, just to support the point that I think this is exactly doing the right thing. It is right that we try and support our affordable housing. It is right that we try to add value to our assets, whether it's demolition at Cromarsh, making it a developable site, or whether it's fulfilling the value of our site in Didcot and our objective and aim to add to the regeneration of Didcot and move it forward for the future. And so I think that irrespective of whether it becomes a council office, we have done the right thing. And even if, let us say, the local government reorganisation were to end up with a single organisation across Oxfordshire, an intelligent council would still seek to have local staff and local knowledge and operations. So I don't say that it's an obligation that they'll take this site on, but they might sensibly do that. So I think everything that we've done makes sense, and makes sense, as has been said. If it were even to go forward for alternative uses, it's much better to have all that in place. So yeah.
Okay, anyone else? In summing up, I'll do some summing up, and then we'll come back to the recommendations one by one, and I think we vote on each separately. Firstly, on the grants, looking at grants, if there are two things we could do with this money, there being an underspend, or three things. One is we could put it back into reserves. Two, we could spend it on something else. Three, we could spend it on these grants. I think these grants are a priority in our plan, and had Councillor Morgan as I think chair of that committee at the time, had said we didn't have enough organisations that we really wanted to fund, then I would say put this money back into reserves. But the fact that there are so many calls on this money that can be met, that do meet our criteria, that do meet our priorities, and are delivering for their communities, then I think it's a good use of that money. Coming on to the regeneration scheme, it's clearly the right decision to cease further work at this stage, having got to a natural break in the process. It was suggested at planning committee by someone that developers would be queuing up to buy it. I'm not sure what the evidence is for that. The rest of the site, this is a complex brownfield site with many restrictions on it. Our experience, certainly around those of us who've been looking at site for a long time, is that commercial developers just aren't interested. They can make more money on developing greenfield sites that are simple. You just turn up, build houses to a template and go away. This site needs something bespoke. And the rest of the site we know is being developed by Homes England as a which is the government's developer of last resort for difficult sites, and they take on these difficult jobs, and well done them. But the impression that there's a queue of other options, I think, is not sustained. Given that we are stopping this, then what do we use that money for? Our number one priority, certainly since I became leader of the council and probably quite a while before that, is to provide social housing. And so it does seem that £10 million and 30 houses, it tells you how ridiculous house prices are. But that means 30 families that are not on the housing list, or that will have their lives significantly improved. And if that's the way we're going to spend the money, then that seems like a good thing to do to me. I think that's probably as much as I want to say around that. So my proposal is that we accept these recommendations, and I'll go through them one by one, just to make sure we're clear that we're voting on all of them. So the first one is to increase, is item A. Cabinet recommends to Council to agree an increase of 521,000 to the funding made available to the Revenue and Community Grant Scheme. And I see those in favour of that. That's everyone. Item B is again to recommend to Council that the following changes be made to the capital programme, which is to cease further work on the Eco Gateway Regeneration Scheme and to purchase approximately 30 homes for use as social housing. I see those in favour of that. Again, is everyone in the room? Item C, the Cabinet recommends to Council to approve the revised capital programme attached as an appendix to this document and the revised prudential indicators. Can I see those in favour of that? Everyone, the computer is playing up, so I can't scroll. Item E. Item D. The Cabinet recommends to Council a one-off supplementary estimate to the next 2 years' budgets, totalling £650,000 spread across those years for the revenue costs associated with the housing purchases. To those in favour of that, that's again everyone. Item E, the Cabinet authorises the Head of Housing and Environment to determine the requirement for additional housing, including the desired location and specification, the tenancy and rent setting, and manage the acquired housing in line with the obligations for Council as a registered provider of social housing. So basically asking the Head of Service to use his judgment based on what our assessed need is those housing. Can I see those in favour? That's everyone. And finally, the Cabinet authorises the Head of Development and Corporate Landlord in consultation with the heads of finance, legal and democratic, and housing and environment, to approve the freehold and leasehold acquisition of property following appropriate due diligence and undertake the works necessary to bring that property into use, including the new repairs and maintenance. So can I see those in favour of that? That's again everyone. Thank you. And so all of that will go to council and hopefully to them to approve. And that was our meeting to an end. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bertie, please can you end the broadcast? Yeah, Bertie, can you confirm